past two sections, we have looked at scatter plots, and we have used those to compare bivariate data. So we've compared two variable data sets, and we've looked at their correlation or the relationship between those two data sets, and we've looked at the trend of that. So I'm talking about how we would look at it and say if it's a positive, negative, or no correlation. So we're going to switch that up a little bit for section 5.3, and we're going to construct two-way frequency tables, and we're going to use these to analyze bivariate data. So two-way frequency tables show and organize data that pertain to two different categories. They're often used to summarize large amounts of information by grouping outcomes into categories. So these tables are often used when surveys are sent out to a lot of people, and so a bunch of information, a bunch of numbers come in, and so that can be, those answers can be grouped up into these tables, and then it makes it a lot easier to look at it and analyze it, and then people can make decisions to go from there. Values of the row variable label the rows that run across the table, and values of the column variable label the columns that run down the table. So rows go across and columns go down. Joint frequency is the totals in the body of a two-way frequency table. So I have 4 definitions right here that I'm going to talk about, and then after you hear the definitions, we'll go through and we'll look at what this actually means, and it'll make a little bit more sense. Okay, continuing on, marginal frequency is the totals for each row and column of a two-way frequency table. Relative frequency is the ratio of the value of a subtotal to the value of a total. So when you think about ratio of a subtotal to a total, or I can say it in a different way, I can say the ratio of a part to a whole. That should make you think about a fraction. A fraction can be converted to a decimal, and then a decimal can be converted to a percentage. So that's what we're going to be doing here. We're going to be taking numbers, writing them as fractions, and then figuring out what those are as percentages. And then it's a lot easier to understand the information. It's a lot easier for you to understand what I say when I'm saying 73% of students enjoy ice cream. It's a lot easier to understand than me saying 49 out of 62 students enjoy eating ice cream. And then our last one is conditional frequency. Once again, we're looking at a ratio, but this time it's the ratio of the joint frequency to the marginal frequency, and it represents the condition of interest. So once again, we're about to go through some examples, and I will show you what each of these actually mean, and we will calculate each of them. So our first example says, Mr. Urich surveyed students at Shawnee Heights Middle School. He found that 78 students own a cell phone, and 57 of those students own a tablet. There are 13 students that do not own a cell phone but own a tablet. 9 students do not own either device. That's a lot of numbers and a lot of words that I just threw at you. So we're going to construct a two-way table to summarize the data, and then it'll be a lot cleaner and simpler to look at and understand. So we're going to start with a table here. The top left corner is always going to be the title of the table. So for this, I decided to go ahead and name it Mr. Urich's survey. And that tells me, I know that this is talking about the survey that Mr. Urich sent out, and it's the information that's taken from it. You could also title it something like technology survey or cell phones and tablets or something similar to that. Whatever works and makes sense for you. So there's 2 different sets of data here. We're working with bivariate data. Those two things are tablets and cell phones. So data number 1 is going to go in the those next two rectangles, and it's going to be tablet and no tablet. So data number 1 is about tablets. So then we need to break that off into students who have tablets and students who do not have tablets. Data number 2 is going to go underneath the title of the table, and it's going to be cell phones and no cell phones. In the top right corner is the total, and also in the bottom left corner that's also the total. So that's all the titles of the rows and columns, and then that title of the whole table. The rest of this is going to be filled in with numbers. So let's go ahead and read through this one more time, and let's take it one part at a time. So the first part says 78 students own a cell phone. So altogether, 78 of the students at Shawnee Heights Middle School own a cell phone. So we're going to look at cell phone. We're going to go to the cell phone row, and we're going to put 78 under the total. The next part says 57 of those students own a tablet. So we're still on that cell phone row. We're still only talking about students who have a cell phone. And then of those students, 57 of them have a tablet. So that 57 is going to go under tablet. Next it says 13 students. There are 13 students that do not own a cell phone, but they do own a tablet. So we're going to go to no cell phone and tablet, and that's going to be 13. And then 9 students do not own either device. So that's going to be no cell phone and no tablet. So that's all the information we were given, but from this, we can now figure out the numbers that go in the rest of these boxes. So starting at the top, we know the total number of students who have a cell phone, which is 78. So if we take away the number, those students that have a tablet, we're going to be left with the number of students who do not have a tablet. So if you take 78 minus 57, that's going to give you 21, and that goes where cell phone and no tablet overlap. Next, let's move on to the no cell phone row. So if we take all the students who do not have a cell phone but do have a tablet, plus all the students who do not have a cell phone and do not have a tablet, that's going to give us the total number of students who do not have a cell phone. So 13 plus 9 is 22. That goes for the total for no cell phone. We're going to do that same thing for tablet. So 57 plus 13 equals 70. So now we're going down the column. Same thing with no tablet. 21 plus 9 is 30. And then for the total, you can either add down the column or across the row. Either way, you're going to get the same number. So you can take, if you're going down the column, you would take the number of students who have a cell phone plus the number of students who do not have a cell phone. 78 plus 22 is 100. Or if you're going across the row, you can take number of students who have a tablet plus number of students who do not have a tablet, and that'll give you the total number of students. So 7 plus 30 is 100. When you're constructing a table like this on your homework, when you get to this part, when you have the rest of the table filled out and all you have left is the total, add it up going both ways and make sure you get the right thing. If you don't get the right thing, then you know that somewhere in your table you either put a number in the wrong spot or you added or subtracted incorrectly. So that's just a quick way to check yourself and make sure that you made this correctly, because now we're going to go on and we're going to calculate stuff from this. So if your original table is not made correctly, then all your calculations are most likely going to be wrong. Before we move on though, I want to show you marginal frequencies. So that was one of the last. So now we're at the definitions that were towards the bottom of that last slide. Marginal frequencies are the frequencies that are in the margin. So it said it's the totals for the rows and the columns. And then joint frequencies is the frequencies or the numbers that are in the body of the table. So it's where the two data sets join together. So it's where the cell phone joins tablet, no cell phone, join tablet, no tablet. All right, moving on to the next part of this example. Now we're going to calculate the relative frequency of each situation. So first of all, remember that relative frequency is the value of the subtotal to the total. So here we have the table that we just made on that previous slide. And so we're going to take the subtotal to the total. So that means we're going to take each of these subtotals, so each of the frequencies in this, and we're going to divide it by the total, which for this problem is 100. So first let's start at the top number, 57. So we're going to take 57 divided by 100, and that gives us 0.57. And then if I say that as a percent, that would be 57%. So that means that 57% of the students own both a tablet and a cell phone. Next one, we're going to take 21 divided by 100. And so that's telling us that 21% of students own a cell phone but no tablet. And then continuing on, we get 78% of students own a cell phone. And then this says 13% of students do not own a cell phone but do own a tablet. And then 9% of students do not own a cell phone or a tablet. 22% of students do not own a cell phone. 70% of students do have a tablet. And 30% of students do not own a tablet. When you are working out these problems, when you're doing the homework, the total is not going to be 100. And so for this example, it was really easy to calculate it because dividing by 100, you're just going to move the decimal point over twice. But in the homework, it's gonna be some random number. And so you can go ahead and use a calculator, but make sure when you do that, you write out all of these things. I want you to write out your fraction. So show me what you're dividing. And then I want you to write out that decimal to 3 decimal places, just like it's written here. You don't need to write the percentage, but I want you to understand what that percent means, or what these numbers mean. So this last one, if you divide by 100, you get 1. You should always get 100% for that last one. That's basically just saying 100% of the students from the survey took the survey. All right, so moving on to the next one. So it says calculate the conditional frequency comparing whether students with or without cell phones have tablets or not. So first of all, remember that conditional frequency is the joint frequency to marginal frequency. So it's where the two data sets join together, those numbers in the middle in the body of the table, divided by the data in the margins. So this one is a little bit more, it takes a little bit more extra thinking because you're only going to use a couple of the numbers. You're not going to use all of those totals. So what I mean by this is you have to figure out what you're comparing. You're either going to go across the row and you're going to divide each of the numbers in the row by the number at the end of the row, so the total for that row. Or you're going to do that for the column. So you're going to go down the column, divide the numbers in that column by the total for that column. So this one says calculate the conditional frequency comparing whether students with or without cell phones have tablets or not. So we're comparing students with or without cell phones. So we're going to focus in on the total for students with cell phones and then the total for students with no cell phones. So this first one, we're going across the row. So we're going to take students who have a cell phone and a tablet, which is 57, divided by total students with a cell phone, which is 78, and that gives us 0.731. So that's saying that 73.1% of students who have a cell phone also have a tablet. So that's different than the last one where we were saying it would have been 73% of students have a cell phone and tablet, but this one's saying 73.1% of students who have a cell phone also have a tablet. So we're focusing in just on the students with the cell phone. Going across the row, we're going to take students with a cell phone and no tablet, which is 21, divided by the total students with a cell phone, which is 78. So we get 0.269. So this is saying 26.9% of students who have a cell phone do not have a tablet. Continuing on, this next one we're going to divide by the total for students with no cell phone. So we've moved down to the no cell phone row, and we're just focusing in on those numbers in that row now. So this is saying 59.1% of students who do not have a cell phone do have a tablet. And then the last one, 9 divided by 22 is 0.409. So 40.9% of students who do not have a cell phone also do not have a tablet. Because conditional frequency is joint frequency to marginal frequency, so joint divided by marginal, you don't need to do any of the totals. You're only dividing the numbers in the middle. Right, so we have one more example. Now instead of looking at students with or without cell phones, we're going to focus in on students with or without tablets. So now instead of going across the cell phone rows, we're going to go down the tablet columns. So this first one, we're going to take 57, but this time we're going to divide it by the total for the tablet, which is 70. So we get 0.814. So now this is saying 81.4% of students who have a tablet also have a cell phone. Continuing on down that column, let's take 13 divided by 70. So we have 0.186. So 18.6% of students who have a tablet do not have a cell phone. Now moving on over to the no tablet column, 21 divided by 30. So 30 is our total for no tablet. We get 0.700. So 70% of students who do not have a tablet have a cell phone. And then 9 divided by 30, 30% of students who do not have a tablet also do not have a cell phone. So all this information can be used in different ways. If this was the actual survey that Mr. Urich had you take, he could look at this information and use it in many different ways. I'm going to go back to this first, the relative frequency that we found. So remember, this is saying, if we're looking at cell phone and tablet, we're saying 57% of students have a cell phone and tablet. So if Mr. Urich is wanting to know how many students do not have any technology at home, he could look at no cell phone and no tablet and see that 9% of students do not have a cell phone or tablet at home. Now if we're moving on to, let's go back to this last example. So now that we're focusing in on students who have tablets and students who do not have tablets, maybe he is wanting to look into students who do not have a tablet. He wants to see if they have at least something that can be used to maybe check Canvas or PowerSchool, even if he can't do very many homework assignments on it. Well, he can look at this and see that 30% of students who do not have a tablet also do not have a cell phone. So he would have to take that into account when he is deciding what to do with technology inside and outside of the classrooms. So these are different ways that this is used. This is a way that it is used in your own school. But many, many different jobs and professions use this type of table and this type of analyzing the data to figure out different things and to decide what they should do in the future with their decisions. You have a homework assignment over this section, so you can go ahead and start working on that now. You have a problem pretty similar to this one. It's a different kind of survey. So you can go ahead and fill out the table and then go through and figure out all the different frequencies as it asks for them.